Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. I'm Craig, and today we are going over the Tyranid Maleceptor in our typical deep dive fashion. Previously, this is one of the few units we have not covered yet here on the channel, but with Warzone Octarius Rising Tide coming in, there is not a better time to cover the Tyranid Maleceptor than right now. So before we dive into that video, please like and subscribe if you are looking forward to this video and want to stay up to date on all content we have coming up in the future, whether it's Tyranids, Grey Knights, or other Battle Report and 40k related stuff. And if you do want to consider supporting the channel, helping us grow this into something bigger than what it is right now, do consider looking to becoming a member. You will get stuff like premium content, access to our member exclusive Discord channel. It is small right now, but we are having a fun time out on that Discord channel. So think about it, and with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video. So today, just like any other deep dive video, we will be going over the Tyranid Maleceptor, and in that we will do the data sheet, cover that. We will specifically talk about its Synaptic Link in addition. Then we'll go over some adaptive physiologies and stratagems to consider. We will then go over some playstyles for the Maleceptor. There are not many different ways of playstyles, but there are a lot of key elements we want to consider with the Maleceptor in order to get the biggest bang for our buck. And then something new that we haven't been doing with these deep dives, which I think are important to go over, are downsides to this unit, Maleceptor obviously. So we'll touch on a few of those. I feel like they are bigger things, blind spots you might get yourself into with the Maleceptor than some other Tyranid units. So we'll go over that, and then we'll wrap it all up in a nice conclusion at the end and let you guys know what we think of the Maleceptor, whether it's an auto-include or maybe something you want to stay away from. So let's go over the Maleceptor. It is coming in at 185 points, assuming you are paying for the Synaptic Links, which you should just about every time. And here are its stats. So move 7, nice. Weapon skill 4 up, you're not taking this for its combat potential. Ballistic skill 4 up, it doesn't have shooting. Strength 7, which degrades. Toughness 7, fine. 12 wounds, standard. 3 attacks. Leadership 9, a 3-up save. Its Psychic Overload ability goes from 6 units to 3 units to D3 units. We'll talk about the end or later about what that is. For its combat potential, it has massive scything talons, which are the same on the Trigon Prime, meaning these hit at AP -3, damage D6. Very swingy, very few attacks. You will probably hit with 1 or 2 of them, and you will probably wound with those, but the damage you do, just don't take it into combat. But, you know, for some extra help, you might get a little, you know, some D6 damage out there. It doesn't have much in terms of abilities. So we'll go over its Psychic Overload, because originally that was its specialty. In Psychic Overload, instead of manifesting any psychic powers, in your psychic phase, the Maleceptor can unleash brain-bursting psychic tendrils. If it does, roll a die for each enemy unit within 6 inches to a maximum of the units stated in the damage table above. So that's the 6, 3, or D3. On a 2+, the Maleceptor deals 1 mortal wound to that unit, but on a 6, it deals a flat 3 mortal wounds. So you do this instead of casting psychic powers. It spreads out the damage to 1 of everything. I honestly don't know if there's ever a time you want to do this. If you want to be doing psychic damage, just smite, and then Psychic Scream if you want to do that much psychic damage. You might not be doing as much damage as you could with Psychic Overload, but it's going to be more consistent and directed at 1 unit instead of just doing chip shots here and there. It might come up. You might have a reason to do it, but more likely than not, it's just nothing. Psychic Barrier is his other ability. It does give you a nice 4-up invuln save which will greatly increase the durability of this monster over a lot of our other non-HQ monsters. Now, also important with it, it is a Psyker, obviously. And unlike some of others, this one's really good. So it can attempt to manifest 2 psychic powers, and it can also attempt to deny 2 psychic powers, which is good. We don't have a lot of 2 denies in our army. It knows Smite and 1 power from the Hive Mind Discipline. Also, whenever it attempts to manifest a power, +1 to its psychic test, which is really, really good. This will allow it to be much more of a, not much more, but it'll help you guarantee psychic tests as they go off. So if you want to put some, we'll talk about it again later, but your support powers like Catalyst and Non-Slot, things that aren't going to be running up the board, but protecting what it's protecting already, you know, it's good. And then if you want to put offensive ones, Smite and Psychic Scream on there, you have a little bit extra % chance of doing a Super Smite with this thing. So that's great. And then finally, to talk about the Maleceptor, we have to mention its Synaptic Link, which is the whole reason we're doing this video now. Its Synaptic Link is 15 points, and it grants a unit reroll damage rolls and an extra AP -1 on wound rolls of 6. That's in combat and that's in shooting. It's both, it's not one or the other, it's everything. Now, I don't know of any unit that has D3 damage in shooting and combat, except for the Harvest, his tongue is D3 damage, but besides him, this is great. So we'll talk about it, but the abilities that this thing grants, it is almost worth taking the Maleceptor for this ability alone, let alone the other abilities that the Maleceptor comes with. So let's talk about the adaptive physiologies and stratagems. Not a lot to say here, but there's one important one. The adaptive physiologies, don't. This is one of the few models in the tier economics that you just don't mess with it. Don't give it murder size because it's not a combat beast. Don't give it dermic symbiosis because it already has the 4-up invuln, and the doubling your wounds for the bracket doesn't really matter for it. You're only missing out, I mean, sure, you're missing out on some weapon skill and some psychic overload, but we don't care about that. So ignore adaptive physiologies. Stratagems, there is a few that are important. Encephalic diffusion for 2 CP. You use this at the start of your turn, This is old 8th edition rules, so it's start of the battle round. So basically when your opponent is like, all right, it's my turn, if they're going first, like, okay, I'm using this stratagem before they do anything else. Before they move, before they do their command phase, before anything, or if you're going first, before any of that, you use this stratagem. You cannot use it later in the turn, you have to declare it right away. But what it does is -1 strength to incoming shots of all units that are within 6 inches of the Maleceptor. Now the Maleceptor is on a big base, he's on the big oval base, so you can touch a lot of your army with him, whether it's gaunts, you just string a few gaunts into 6-inch range, your big monsters you can put within 6 inches, especially for a turn 1 deployment. This stratagem is everything. Now it sounds great, and it is great on some models, not all, but it's important to think about it when you're using your Maleceptor and this ability, because 2 CP is pricey. You probably don't want to use this every turn, but I can see using it on the first turn almost every time, depending on your army, and on the second turn some of the time, again, match up in your army depending, but other than that, you probably won't use the stratagem. So this is, again, one of the things you're paying for when you are taking the Maleceptor is this ability. This is huge for him. Smart stratagems, all of the psychic ones and all the synapse ones are decent. Specifically, I like the synaptic channeling one. So the Maleceptor can know all powers on the field in case you want to swing your powers around. The Chrono specific one, I didn't put it on here, but you know, doing psychic tests can do well. If you're playing Grey Knights, the one where you all failed are Perils. That's a great one. But really the main stratagem you're using is Encephalic diffusion. Now, Play styles for the Maleceptor. This thing is the super support bug. Think of your Zoanthropes are kind of your support infantry, right? They do their psychic support. You can play them very aggressively like I do love to do, but not so much with this unit because they aren't nearly as durable. Still, the super support bug, you must take advantage of a lot of things in order to get your points out of it. So we'll talk through those. So first, the strat. Like I said, the units that you have that will benefit the most from this stratagem are your toughness 3, your toughness 4, and your toughness 8 models. You can argue, yes, your toughness 7 ones will also benefit from it as well, but not as much as your 8s. And your 5s will not benefit that much, your 6s won't. Really, 3, 4, and 8. The reason I say 3s is all incoming bolter fire is now wounding your gaunts on 4s. All incoming bolter fire is now wounding your warriors and your raveners on 5s. All incoming light arms fire from, flamers and things like that, all wounding your warriors on 4s. But really where it shines the most is on your toughness 8 models, your Tervagons, Tyrannofexes, and your Hierodules. For sure those ones. You've got now multi-meltas wounding your Hierodules on 5s and 6s. Dark Lances, 5s and 6s. Las Cannons on 4s. Battle Cannons on 5s and 6s. The damage potential that you are subtracting from your incoming fire on your Hierodules or your Tyrannofexes, and Tervagons of course, is insane. It really will guarantee, not guarantee because I can't say everything, but it'll guarantee keeping one of your big boys alive a lot longer than it should. If you really want to, side tangent, take a Tervagon in the new Leviathan fleet, take the -1 to wound strat, pair that with a Maleceptor, and now your Tervagon can take it somewhere in the range of 50 multi-meltas or 100 shots before a Tervagon goes down. It's insane. Now, that's just the strat, and you will probably only be taking advantage of that for 1 or 2 turns because it is pricey, probably just the first turn. Synaptic Link is the next important thing. Reroll damage is huge, especially for Tyranids, because we do have a lot of D6 damage, but we also have some very key D3 damage. Rerolling damage is huge on the Hive Guard. Specifically the Hive Guard, we'll talk about them first, because now you are almost guaranteed to kill intercessors with 1 shot. You don't have to worry about the whole, oh no, I have to use 2 Hive Guard shots to kill 1 Space Marine. You can go get around Death Guard and Dreadnoughts and things that have reduced damage by 1, because now you can more guarantee that you're gonna just roll. Every time you roll for 3 damage potentially. If you're going against Dreadnought and you roll a 1 through a 4, just roll again and try to get 5 or 6, because a 1 through 4 result is always the same because of reduced damage by 1. 5s and 6s are now better because they're 2 damage. And if you're going up against, vehicles, now you have that much better of a chance to do 2 to 3 damage on all of them. It just makes the Hive Guard that much more reliable and that much more effective. Not only the fact that you get an extra AP on 6s, now those 6s to wound now become AP -3, which means your opponent is not getting probably 5-up saves. They're only getting 6-up saves against them, which is even better. Some other units to consider: Tyrannofexes, again, have big D6 damage, so re-rolling those damage rolls is much more likely for you to go through and do that average 7 wounds with 2 shots, or even higher, because you could roll a 1 and a 6, re-roll the 1 into a 3, now you're doing 9. I think it actually comes out to be a little bit more than 7 damage on average with the re-rolls. So that's great for Tyrannofexes if you love the big Rupture Cannon. And they do sync well because you can keep the Maleceptor back with the Tyrannofexes. Now the Tyrannofexes are harder to kill because you have Encephalic Diffusion. It's a great combo right there. Another one that I am going to try out hopefully sometime soon. I don't think this is any tournament breaking awesome combo, but for sheer damage, it is going to be absolutely hilarious to see. Pairing this with a Trigon or Trigon Prime for the reroll damage and the extra AP. Your Trigon Prime's rocking in with 7 attacks. You're probably going to hit with 6 of them. You're going to wound most tanks if you put Murderous Size on them, which is fun. You're going to wound most tanks on 3s. Pay the CP for the Voracious Appetite. Reroll them. You're going to get maybe 4 or 5 wounds through on a vehicle. Now you're rerolling that damage. You're going to one-shot every vehicle there is. You're going to get close to one-shotting Knights with that. So that's going to be fun to see what kind of damage people do with Trigons now. Finally, the last part of the Maleceptor we're going to go in depth on is the Psychic support. So again, the Psychic Overload, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't think it's worth it in 19 out of 20 situations. But what he is good for is being that backfield support. So again, +1 cast is great. He can do Smite. You can use Psychic Channeling to do other powers if you need to. But some powers to consider are Onslaught. So if he's walking around with Hive Guard, Onslaught will allow them to ignore that move and shoot penalty. So that's a great one. Psychic Scream, if you want to go for the damage, do Smite and Psychic Scream back to back. Go for 2d3 mortal wounds. In some situations it'll be great, but probably not as good as some other ones. Or if this is your backfield support and you want a little bit more of a reliable cast than on a Hive Tyrant or Swarm Lord, putting Catalyst on them is always a good option. Now it's going off on die rolls of 5 instead of 6. I like it. Or one more, if you are playing Chronos, then putting Symbiostorm on these guys is also good, because again, that is also now on a 5 instead of a 6. Just that much more likely that the power is going to go off and further help buff that unit of Hive Guard. A unit of Hive Guard supported by them with a Chronos unit, I should say specifically, with the reroll damage, the extra AP on 6s, and the Symbiostorm with the rerolling 1s. Oh, it's just so much damage. You can potentially 3-4 shot any tank in the game. Dread Knights are going to be crumbling that much quicker. You could probably, with the 2 CP to shoot again, drop 2 Dread Knights in 1 turn with 1 Hive Guard unit. So watch out, people. Hive Guard are still terrifying. Now, let's consider a few downsides with the Maleceptor. Their bubble is only 6 inches for the -1 strength. You don't want to get too sucked in on using that too much, but both abilities, the Synaptic Link and the Encephalic Diffusion, happen in the command phase or the start of the turn, which means you have to think 1 step ahead when maneuvering this monster. You have to think, okay, next turn, where am I going to be? Where am I going to need that stratagem if I want to use it? And where am I going to need the Synaptic Link if I need to? Now, Synaptic Link has a bit more flexibility because it is a Synaptic Link, meaning it could go from Psychic Power to Psychic, or Synapse Creature to Synapse Creature, though you still have to be cognizant of that range and everything. It's not that big of a downside, but for a newer player who isn't thinking 1 turn ahead or 2 turns ahead, you might get in a situation like, crap, is it really worth 2 CP when he's only in range of 1 unit? They might just not even target that unit since you paid the 2 CP. Another part is to consider, he's not a character. He can be picked apart by himself if you don't hide him. So be careful that while he does benefit from his own bubbles of Encephalic Diffusion, he is not invulnerable. And if someone has enough direct line of sight with las cannons, then it will drop him relatively quick. You're only relying on a 4-up invuln save and 12 wounds. So if you're playing against Admech and they've got 3 Chicken Walkers with the twin Cognis las cannons, they will probably still drop him in a turn of shooting. So be careful. You definitely want to hide this guy behind line of sight blocking terrain, and then just use his bubbles and synapse to extend those ranges as best as possible. He does not want to be seen until later game when the range threats are eliminated and dealt with thanks to your Hive Guard. So he is also, like I said, an expensive beast at 185 points. The strat is 2 CP. He is quite a sink, and he doesn't contribute in every phase. He doesn't shoot, he's very poor combat, and I mean technically the charge phase, he doesn't do much and he could charge, but it's just, you want to make sure, because he doesn't really contribute in all of the phases like that, that you are really making sure you use everything that he offers to the maximum potential. Otherwise you are wasting 185 points, and I don't think he's worth 185 points if you're not using every aspect of him. Just some downsides. Let's wrap them all up in this conclusion here. Since Warzone Octarius launched, this unit, in my opinion, went from a so-so one-trick pony unit to a very good unit, borderlining auto take, but it is list depending, as I will discuss here. He can bolster the defenses for a larger buck. I think he's great. I don't think he's worth it if you're bringing a swarm, but if you're bringing toughness 8 monsters, like for me, how I'm including him in my list is that I have 2 hero duels, a barbed and a scythe. He's gonna sit next to them turn 1 and make those toughness 8 monsters that anything can practically see that much more difficult to kill. I'm really gonna bank on my opponent targeting the barbed hero duel. That way he is -1, there's -1 strength incoming shots. He's got the 2-up save, and I'm playing Chronos, so nothing else to it. But if I go second or first, then I can put Feel No Pain on him, really make him a distraction. But still, if he goes on to the side one, then the side one's still good. But toughness 8, man, that is a sweet spot to have -1 strength of incoming attacks on. Supporting Hive Guard, absolutely. If you are taking a Maleceptor, you should also have a unit of Hive Guard, because they benefit more than anything else in the Codex from their Synaptic Link. So if you're bringing one, you got to make sure you take advantage of its encephalic diffusion. I would say that is 90 points of the 185 that come from it. You need Hive Guard to support. Sure, you can have fun with the Trigon, and maybe one turn the Trigon goes off and does his thing, but really the Hive Guard are the ones that have to benefit from the Synaptic Link. And you have to make sure you're using him in the Psychic phase to his advantage. He has 2 casts and 2 denies with a +1 to cast. 2 denies is awesome. Not many Tyranids, I don't think anything has 2 denies except something with the Resonance Barb. So making sure now maybe the 2 denies won't come up because your opponent doesn't have a Psyker or a Psychic phase. So if you're playing Grey Knights, absolutely want to make sure those 2 denies are going to work. But if you're playing Necrons, then make sure those casts are going to work, because they're not going to have much to deny with, if anything. So take advantage of all 3 of those in a game regularly, then this thing is pretty much an auto take. So that's pretty much it for the Maleceptor. So we didn't have to really cover the Hive Fleets, because its Leviathan Hive Fleet is, arguably the best one right now. Chronos is a pretty good second. Kraken is a good third, and then everything else just kind of follows behind them. But the Hive Fleets, what they do doesn't really affect what the Maleceptor does. He still does his thing. So didn't have to do that. There's no customization options for him. It's pretty much plop him down on the table, let him do his big support things, and see how it works. But he is a big synergy-based model. You need, more than most things in the Codex, you need him to maximize his synergy with your list in order to get the most out of him. So have you guys tried out the Maleceptor so far with Warzone Octarius? Have you used it before Warzone Octarius and liked it? Let me know down in the comments. I am working on getting one for my own to play around with, so you can see on the channel. I definitely want to try out the Trigon Rush. We'll probably maybe see how it does against a Baneblade. That would be a lot of fun. Or Knights. We have both. Yeah, we have both, so we'll see the Trigon try and take down one of those in the future. But thank you guys for watching. Again, like and subscribe if you're loving this content and you want to see more of it. And if you'd like to support the channel, help us grow, then consider being a member. You will get premium access to member exclusive content. You'll get our Discord channel and much more. And all of the money from channel memberships goes right back into making this channel better, whether it's new lighting, cameras, terrain, anything of that matter. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.